I lost my memory. But I'm faking it. 7 years of being with Ethan. Only to hear, "You're just fun to be with. Not the type to marry." It was humiliating. But when I walked down the aisle with another man on my arm, Ethan regretted it. He stormed into the wedding, dragged me away, and with reddened eyes, begged, "Nina, please, can you stay with me for the rest of your life?" I didn't expect to run into Ethan so soon again. Just 1 month after our fallout. No big deal. I had just finished a fiery, close contact dance with a handsome partner, and was catching my breath near a secluded corner of the venue when Ethan blocked my path. Blinking in confusion, I thought I should try to play my amnesia role poetically. But Ethan didn't speak. His gaze was dark and brooding, simmering with restrained anger. His eyes swept over my exposed back and the hungry stares of nearby men. Without a word, he took off his suit jacket, draped it over my shoulders, and gently pulled me close. The faint, familiar scent of Maginassan cologne lingered around him, mixing with his warmth. His body shielded me from view. His lips brushing close to my ear as he whispered in a low, magnetic voice, "Out of character. Nina, you ignored me for a month. Were you really that mad? Come on, let's go back to my place or the hotel." Startled, I flinched and stepped back, breaking free from his embrace. "Please show some respect, sir," I said firmly, my voice wavering. Ethan's brows furrowed deeply, his piercing eyes fixed on me with growing displeasure. "Nina Williams." He rarely called me by my full name. Whenever he did, it meant he was upset. It meant I was supposed to yield, to apologize. But I wasn't the same Nina who had spent years desperately trying to make him marry me. Now, I was Nina, the one pretending to have amnesia after a car accident. I stepped back further, widening the gap between us, frantically scanning the crowd for my fiancé, Liam Carter. Then, feigning politeness, I asked Ethan, "Do we know each other?" Ethan's expression grew irritated, as if my disobedience frustrated him. "Nina, stop pretending." His curt tone sent a shiver down my spine. The emotional breakdown and split from him a month ago. To Ethan, it was just me being dramatic. I nearly lost my composure. But thankfully, Liam showed up just in time. "Apologies, Mr. Hayes," Liam said, stepping between us. His white suit complemented his tall frame as he shielded me protectively. "My fiancée was in a car accident recently and has memory issues. She's still recovering. If she doesn't recognize you, it's understandable." Ethan's eyes narrowed sharply, disbelief flashing across his face as he stared at me. His lips parted slightly, and he spoke as if seeking confirmation. "Fiancé." I hesitated, surprised that his shock wasn't about my supposed amnesia but about the word fiancé. Truthfully, I wasn't faking the memory loss just for fun. When I woke up in the hospital to my parents' worried faces and their exhausted, bloodshot eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say, "Mom, Dad, I was someone's toy for 7 years, and he didn't want to marry me." So, I used the accident as an excuse to start over. Thankfully, my real concussion made my story believable, even medically valid. No matter how much Ethan investigated, all he'd find were authentic hospital records and rehab sessions from the past month. "Mr. Hayes," I said, peeking out from behind Liam and biting my lip nervously. My voice carried an innocent curiosity. "Why did you say you wanted to take me to a hotel? Were we that kind of relationship? My parents never mentioned you before." I asked on purpose, knowing he couldn't answer either question. Ethan was famously aloof, known for his cold detachment, for over 20 years. He had never shown interest in any woman, until I fell for him. He was my first love, and I shamelessly pursued him, eventually succeeding in pulling him into my world. For 7 years, we had an intimate, clandestine relationship that never saw the light of day. I thought he cared, that he hesitated to go public because of family pressures, just like me. But when I finally mustered the courage to propose to him, I saw his face shadowed with conflict under the candlelight. His reply shattered me. "I thought we were just having fun. I'm sorry if I misled you. I've already arranged my engagement with someone my parents chose. Nina, you're great, but you're not the kind of woman to marry." Fun. 7 years of unconditional devotion from the eldest daughter of the Williams family. And all I was to him was fun? Was I that foolish? If he had no intention of marrying me, why didn't he reject me from the start? To Ethan, my pursuit was nothing more than me begging to be his casual lover. That night, we had a terrible argument. I broke it off, packed my things, and left. Tears blurred my vision as I drove, leading to the accident. Ethan repeated my words slowly. That kind of relationship? His gaze scrutinized me, as if searching for cracks in my amnesia act. I forced myself to meet his eyes, feigning confusion, though my heartbeat raced. My hand instinctively tightened around Liam's arm. After a long pause, Ethan relented. His tense expression eased into an awkward smile. No, we're friends. I upset you before, and I wanted to invite you to dinner at the hotel or my place to apologize. I pretended to relax, stepping out from behind Liam and playfully clinging to his arm. Oh, I see. You scared me. I thought I had done something improper in the past. Liam, who was the only one who knew I was faking my amnesia, played along perfectly. He affectionately tapped my nose and said, "How could you? My Nina is the best." Ethan's eyes settled on the diamond ring on my hand resting against Liam's arm. His voice turned cold as he asked, "When did you get engaged?" I know Ethan too well. When he asked that last question, he unconsciously tugged at his tie, a small habit of his whenever he felt agitated or annoyed. I figured it was probably just male possessiveness. After all, when I was with him, I was entirely his. And now, only a month after our breakup, I suddenly became someone else's fiancé. Even someone as composed and detached as Ethan couldn't help but feel unsettled. But Liam Carter, as oblivious to danger as ever, smiled warmly and replied, 2 weeks ago. I was so shaken after Nina's accident that I didn't want to waste any time. We arranged everything as soon as she was discharged. We're getting married next month. If you're free, Mr. Hayes, I'd be happy to send you an invitation. Ethan didn't respond. His deep gaze stayed fixed on me, his fist tightening at his side. A telltale calm before the storm. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to put on a look of sudden realization. Mr. Hayes, are you still upset about what happened before? It's okay. I don't even know what you did to make me mad. But since I've lost my memory, everything from the past is water under the bridge. No need to dwell on it. We'd be delighted to have you at our wedding. I even covered my mouth with a playful laugh, adding, surely, Mr. Hayes didn't do anything too outrageous to me. Right. I truly meant it when I said I wanted to let go of the past. Ethan's words, "You're just fun, not the kind to marry," had cut so deep that they left scars etched in my memory. The humiliation and pain still stung whenever I thought about them. I had fantasized about revenge. Why should I be the only one suffering while he walked away unscathed? Why should he get to look down on my feelings as if they were nothing more than a pitiful plea for attention? But in the end, all my pain and resentment boiled down to one undeniable truth. He didn't love me. And you can't hurt someone who doesn't care. Any attempt at revenge would only hurt me more. I also blamed myself. I had been blind and naive, pouring my heart out while he stood on the sidelines, indifferent. I deserved the heartbreak for being so foolish. So I genuinely wanted to use this opportunity to reconcile with Ethan, to reconcile with the old version of me who loved him hopelessly. From now on, we'd be strangers, each walking our separate paths. I smiled at Ethan, holding onto Liam's arm. Well then, Mr. Hayes, we'll take our leave now. What if I did? Ethan interrupted. I froze. What if you did what? What if I really did something outrageous to you? Ethan's voice was calm, deliberate. It sounded like a man prepared to lay all his cards on the table. I forced a smile. It doesn't matter. I've forgotten everything. Terrified he'd say something even more shocking, I quickly pulled Liam along and left. As we walked, Liam leaned down slightly and whispered with a grin, "I can feel his eyes still on you. Let's head to the rooftop before he corners you again." Once we reached the rooftop, Liam checked to make sure no one was around before locking the door behind us. Excitement sparkled in his eyes as he muttered, "It's obvious he still has feelings for you. Are you sure you don't want to turn this into one of those passionate, heart-wrenching love stories? You could really make him suffer." I rolled my eyes and let the evening breeze cool my head. You need to stop reading so many romance novels. Liam had always been my mischievous childhood friend, someone who lived by the mantra, play hard, never settle. But in families like ours, love often took a back seat to practicality, and marriage was just the biggest business deal of all. Even Liam couldn't escape that reality. When he accidentally found out I wasn't really suffering from amnesia, we struck a deal. We'd get engaged to keep up appearances but continue living our separate lives. Liam gave me a knowing look. 7 years. Are you really not going back to him? I let out a bitter laugh. Unrequited self-sacrifice doesn't count as love. From the very beginning, this relationship was never equal to Ethan. Accepting my confession or even sharing a bed with me was just his way of indulging me. Going back to him would be like begging for humiliation all over again. Forget it. Life gets easier when you learn to let go. I reached up to rub my arms but felt the soft fabric of a suit jacket instead. I had forgotten I was still wearing Ethan's jacket. After a moment's thought, I took it off and tossed it to Liam. Do me a favor and return this to him. I'll meet you at the car. Liam shrugged but didn't argue. He left, jacket in hand, to find Ethan. I lingered on the rooftop for a few more minutes before heading to the parking garage. Turning a corner in the hallway, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan. He was leaning against the wall, staring at his phone, his expression cold and stormy. I nodded politely. Mr. Hayes. I wasn't foolish enough to think he was waiting for me. I just wanted to leave as quickly as possible. But as I walked past him, I caught the faint smell of alcohol, and before I could react, he grabbed my wrist. Startled, I turned to look at him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his phone screen. Picture of me, looking like a medical record. He had checked up on me. Do you need something, Mr. Hayes? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Ethan stared at me intently. I came to get my jacket. Ah, what a coincidence. I just sent it back with Liam. You must have missed him. No, Ethan said flatly. I watched him leave. His logic didn't make sense to me, but his next words caught me off guard. The jacket was just an excuse. I came to confirm something. What is it? I felt a wave of tension wash over me. Could Ethan have found something out? Before I could steady myself, I lost my balance as Ethan pushed me into the nearest private room. In the dim, unlit space, he pressed me against the door. You just said that even if I had done something outrageous before, it wouldn't matter because you've forgotten it. Is that true? His voice was low, tinged with a dangerous calm. Yes, I answered hesitantly. Then what about this? His alcohol-tinged lips suddenly claimed mine, stealing my breath. Ethan pinned me firmly against the door, his long, pale fingers slipping along the line of my dress, finding their way to my bare skin. His warm palm rested on my waist, and the heat seemed to scorch my flesh. I was terrified, unable to comprehend this sudden madness. I struggled desperately, pushing against his shoulders, trying to break free. The kiss that once made my knees weak now felt like a blade scraping against my pride. Didn't he consider that I was, at least in name, engaged? What if someone saw this? How could I hold my head high after this? Ethan must have noticed my resistance and reluctance because he loosened his grip slightly but didn't let me go entirely. Instead, he held me close, his deep voice laced with bitterness. His eyes searched mine as if trying to uncover the truth. We've done so many outrageous things together, and yet, you've forgotten all of it. Only me. Is that really possible? Nina. In that moment, I understood Ethan's erratic behavior. He didn't believe I had amnesia. And, to be fair, it was quite a coincidence. I had faked my memory loss purely out of humiliation. I couldn't face my parents and tell them that my 7-year-long secret relationship was with a man who had no intention of marrying me. So, I conveniently pretended my memory froze before our relationship began. This left me remembering everyone except Ethan. If I wanted to, I could report Ethan for his actions just now. Seizing the opportunity, I shoved him away with all my strength, my face cold and unyielding. Mr. Hayes, I said sharply, my voice tinged with irritation. You just said yourself that we're not in a romantic relationship. So, those outrageous things you mentioned, were they related to a casual arrangement? My tone was cutting, my gaze accusatory. As the eldest daughter of the Williams family, do you think I would stoop so low as to engage in something so degrading? Unless, of course, your charm was just that overwhelming. I deliberately looked him up and down, tilting my head as if assessing him. Not really. I sneered. If anything, I was probably deceived or just used. After all, isn't that what happened? I never knew someone would need to confess and chase after someone just to become their casual partner. Ethan's face darkened, his anger palpable as he glared at me with clenched teeth. Nina. All right, I said, raising a hand in mock surrender. Let's not argue about why. Let's just assume I made a huge mistake before. But as a casual partner, Mr. Hayes, what gives you the right to question me now or force me into anything? The word partner seemed to strike a nerve. His fist tightened, veins visible on the back of his hand. Ethan closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and when he opened them again, his voice was calmer but still carried an undercurrent of restrained anger. Nina, stop being so difficult. I didn't realize you wanted to be my girlfriend back then. I've already called off the engagement my family arranged for me. If you want to be my girlfriend, you can. I've missed you this past month. Maybe what I said that night was wrong. I do care about you. So stop this and come back to me. I had waited years to hear an apology, but instead of feeling relieved, I only felt a bitter sense of irony. Ethan still didn't understand. He still sat on his pedestal, speaking down to me as if he were granting me a favor. The issue was never about being his girlfriend. It was about how he had always seen me, as someone beneath him, someone to be pitied or indulged. A relationship like that was inherently unequal. What use was it to me? Mr. Hayes, I said quietly, my tone weary. I've already told you. I genuinely don't remember the past, but from what I've pieced together about our relationship, it doesn't sound like it was a healthy one. Now, I have a fiancé. Seeking out a casual partner would be a moral failing. I shrugged, giving him a dismissive once-over. And honestly, even if I were looking for one, you don't seem worth the trouble anymore. Ethan's jaw tightened, his eyes blazing with fury as they bore into mine. Not worth it, he growled. What else could it be? I replied coolly. To me, you're just a stranger now. And frankly, you're not my type. I have no interest in being your girlfriend. I took a step back, gripping the doorknob behind me, ready to make my exit. Looking him in the eye one last time, I said firmly, Mr. Hayes, I hope this is the last time we cross paths. From now on, let's remain strangers. Without waiting for his response, I opened the door and walked out, keeping my steps measured and calm despite my racing heart. Ethan didn't follow me. As soon as I was out of sight, the mask I had been wearing fell. The pain I had suppressed came rushing to the surface. 7 years, and it had all ended in nothing. Of course, it hurt. Behind me, I heard the door click shut. Inside, Ethan stood motionless, his face dark with an approaching storm. His phone buzzed again, and this time, he finally picked it up. What is it? He asked, his voice cold. Still no luck finding your little rabbit, Ethan? Came a teasing voice on the other end. When I got back to the car after calming myself down, Liam was already waiting for me. He gave me a long, scrutinizing look before tilting his head with a smirk. Your lipstick is smudged. Things got intense. Huh. Say one more word, and I'll rip your mouth apart. I snapped, grabbing a tissue to wipe my lips aggressively. I scrubbed so hard it felt like I wanted to erase even the skin that had been touched by Ethan's kiss. Liam's gaze shifted to my hand gripping the tissue, his fingers unconsciously tapping the steering wheel. His expression grew thoughtful, his handsome features soft yet sharp, less cold than Ethan's, with a slightly boyish charm. His flawless skin added to his natural appeal, but it was his eyes that stood out, deep and dark. They seemed like small whirlpools, hiding emotions I couldn't decipher. What's your deal, Miss Williams? He asked, his tone casual. I shrugged. No deal. I'd rather die than go back to someone I left behind. Today was just about venting some pent-up frustration in a poetic way. From now on, he's a stranger to me, and I'm fine with that. The irony wasn't lost on me. The humiliation I wanted to avoid by faking amnesia had somehow become the perfect way to sever ties with Ethan completely. Life's twists and turns really can be unexpectedly poetic. Liam's serious expression quickly melted back into his usual carefree grin. He started the car, raising his hand in a mock Superman takeoff pose. His brown, slightly messy hair adding to the ridiculousness of it. Got it. Next time he tries to poach my fiancé, I'll take him down. This wedding doesn't have to happen if he keeps crossing the line. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unlocking it, I saw a message from Ethan. I frowned. It was the first time he had reached out to me since our breakup. You left some things at my place. Come pick them up when you have time. My phone was new, replaced after the accident, so there were no old conversations with Ethan. But even in the past, most of our chats had been me reaching out while he replied selectively. Now, he was initiating. Saturday at 9 a.m. The door will be open. I replied. Send me the address. I added, deliberately playing the part of someone who couldn't possibly remember where he lived. I thought the exchange was over. But a moment later, another message came through. You used to love me. The suddenness of it caught me off guard. I immediately understood. It was his response to what I'd said earlier. Would someone like me lower myself to that level? Does that sound normal? The words hit me like a slap. My heart clenched, and I couldn't help but feel pity for the person I used to be. How low must I have stooped for Ethan to feel entitled to send such a shameless message? As if it were perfectly justified? Yes, Ethan. I thought bitterly. The person I used to be loved you so much that she couldn't even get the title of girlfriend. No wonder I forgot you. I stared at the screen, where it said Ethan was still typing, but no new message appeared. With a cold laugh, I locked my phone, refusing to engage further. My right hand, however, unconsciously tightened around the fabric of my dress. Later that night, at 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Maybe it's good that you forgot, his message read. Let's start over. Start over. He had to be joking. I didn't reply, shoving my emotions down as I locked my phone again and took a deep breath. From that moment on, Ethan disappeared from my world entirely. Not that I had much time to dwell on it. My wedding with Liam was set for 3 weeks later, and the hectic preparations kept me busy. Liam practically lived at my pottery studio, complaining endlessly about the wedding plans. Why don't you go work on your craft instead of squatting here all day? I teased, brushing glaze onto a ceramic piece. I'd love to, he grumbled, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a frown. But I'm buried in this wedding nonsense because you're too busy to care. Before I could retort, another buzz interrupted us. It was a message from Ethan, sent to my phone. Liam grabbed it before I could, his expression turning sly as he read it aloud. You should come yourself. I don't allow strangers in my house. Liam's smug grin only grew wider as he continued, mockingly. Oh, look at that. Miss Williams. He wants you to personally grace his doorstep. That's quite the privilege. I froze, clenching my teeth as I turned to glare at him. Liam, dressed in a casual gray tracksuit, looked far too relaxed for someone who was clearly asking for a fight. Do you want to die? I snapped. Liam shrugged, unfazed, his smirk firmly in place. Admit it. He just wants to see you. Aren't you even a little tempted to reply? I picked up my paintbrush, ready to retort, but my eyes drifted to the table in front of Liam. My gaze landed on the bowl of watermelon he'd been eating. Without hesitation, I lunged forward, grabbed the spoon, and shoved a huge bite into my mouth before he could stop me. Liam glared, snatching the bowl away. You're going to choke eating like that. What are you? A child? I stuck my tongue out at him. Mind your own business. Liam rolled his eyes. Why are you holed up here anyway? Shouldn't you be planning the wedding? This is my dad's workshop. I replied, gesturing around. It's just a side hobby while my parents manage the family ceramics business. What's your excuse for loafing around here? Liam shrugged again. Unlike you, I don't have a dozen deadlines to meet. Plus, someone has to deal with the wedding details since you're too busy. I sighed, knowing he wasn't wrong. Fine. Just don't touch anything fragile, or you're paying for it. Clicked my tongue, brushing off the matter. It's just a formality. Isn't this the kind of thing wedding planners handle anyway? Liam stopped walking abruptly, his back radiating an inexplicable melancholy. For a moment, I thought he was gathering energy to turn around and lecture me. Instead, I heard him say, "A wedding isn't a joke. Even if it's just for show, it has to be the best for you." My heart jolted unexpectedly. His sincerity hit me, and my nose stung as I fought back tears. This world has always been unkind to women. I spent 7 years with Ethan, only for the relationship to end in a single breakup. If word got out, people would give me those subtle, judgmental looks. 7 years wasted. If it weren't for Liam also needing a wife for his own reasons, I probably wouldn't have considered marriage at all. Even now, with the wedding planned, I wasn't holding on to any fantasies, but I hadn't expected Liam, who was a year younger than me, to be so perceptive. My eyes grew moist, and I quickly turned my face away, sniffing lightly before forcing a cheerful tone. "You're right. Let's pick something good together." I tugged on the hood of Liam's sweatshirt, trying to make him relent and agree to the white wedding invitations I'd chosen. That was when my phone rang. I answered absent-mindedly, not even glancing at the screen. "Hello. Who's this?" As I spoke, I looked up to see Liam attempting to stuff my white invitation samples into the trash. Furious, I yelled, "Liam Carter, put those down. We're going with those invitations. No substitutions." The person on the other end of the call fell into an eerie silence. After finishing my outburst, I glanced at the screen and froze. My heart gave a tiny, involuntary pang, but it was just that. Pang. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I asked cautiously. "It's me." Ethan's voice came through. I immediately adopted a businesslike tone. "Oh, Mr. Hayes, what can I do for you?" Hearing Ethan's name, Liam, who had been sprawled over the table looking at invitations, bolted upright. He stared at me with his big, expressive eyes, looking like a husky suddenly coming to life. His over-the-top reaction made me suppress a smile. Ethan hesitated briefly on the other end, his usually cold voice carrying a faint trace of grievance. "You didn't respond to my messages." Of course I didn't respond. I never planned to. I've been busy choosing wedding invitations with Liam, I said lightly, as if it were no big deal. There was a brief silence. Then I heard a faint sigh on the other end. I sent the organizer away. "You'll need to come pick up your things yourself." "Oh, I see," I said, raising an eyebrow. "But since you live in the upscale Riverside villas, surely you have housekeepers. Could you ask them to pack everything up and throw it away? Those things are expensive, but they're not irreplaceable." The ice in Ethan's voice cracked slightly. "Nina, the housekeepers I hire don't have any obligation to clean up your mess. Come get your things yourself. Then how about you give me your housekeeper's contact information? I'll pay them directly. That way, they wouldn't be strangers to me, and the problem would be solved." The other end went completely silent. I glanced at the phone screen, wondering if the call had disconnected. "Mr. Hayes," I prompted. Ethan's voice returned, cold and firm. "I'll bring them to you myself." And with that, he hung up. I stared at the phone, sighing in exasperation. So, he's just now realizing how much it stung when he labeled me as nothing more than a casual fling? Where was this awareness 7 years ago? Did he really think he could start over with me now? I was on the verge of getting married. "Miss Williams." Liam interrupted my thoughts, leaning in close. He rolled up one of the white invitations into a tube and mockingly held it to my lips. "How does it feel to fake amnesia and mess with an ex?" I smirked, crooking a finger at him. "Come here. I'll tell you a secret." As soon as he leaned in, I wrapped my arm around his neck in a firm headlock. "You dog. How dare you mess with my invitations behind my back?" Liam, his face turning red from the chokehold, flailed dramatically. "Mercy. Your Majesty. Mercy." Too late. In the scuffle, we both tumbled onto the couch, tangled together. Using his longer limbs and superior strength, Liam quickly turned the tables, pinning me beneath him. Our faces were suddenly close, noses almost touching, and even our breaths mingled. The room fell silent as we froze, staring at each other in shock. The atmosphere grew strange, his Adam's apple bobbing as his dark eyes locked onto mine. Slowly, his lips started to move closer. Ding-ling. The doorbell's chime shattered the moment. We scrambled apart and turned toward the door, where Ethan stood casually in the doorway, holding a suitcase. His expression was unreadable as he took in the scene before him. "You got here fast, Mr. Hayes," I blurted, my voice tinged with nervousness. "Fast? No, he must have been waiting outside the whole time." Guilt pricked at me, worried he might have overheard Liam's earlier teasing. "I was in the area," Ethan said simply, his gaze drifting to my arm, which was still wrapped around Liam. His eyes darkened slightly. "Am I interrupting something?" My face flushed as I quickly tried to pull away, but Liam tightened his hold on me, smirking as he turned to Ethan. "Yes, you are. It was just about to get inappropriate. Care to step out, Mr. Hayes?" Ethan's brow twitched, his sharp gaze cutting toward me. His presence exuded quiet tension, but Liam met his stare head-on, unyielding. The unspoken battle between them felt oppressive, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I stepped between them, pushing Liam back with a pointed look. "Enough, Liam. Put the invitations away. It's messy and embarrassing." Liam's expression lit up like a victorious puppy. He turned to Ethan with a smug grin and quipped, "Got it, my dear fiancé. Or should I just throw them away?" I pressed my lips together, glancing back at Ethan, whose expression was dark and stormy. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for bringing my things," I said calmly. "If there's nothing else, I'm quite busy at the moment, so I won't be able to entertain you." Claiming he was here to drop off my belongings was just a transparent excuse. Anyone with half a brain could tell he came to see me, possibly to talk things through or even try to win me back. But I wasn't going to take the bait. I didn't want to give him the opportunity. I hadn't spent 7 days with Ethan. I'd spent 7 years. 7 years of devotion didn't earn me the title of girlfriend. Even after that explosive argument, the breakup, and leaving my home in tears, he hadn't felt he'd done anything wrong. To him, it was all just me making a scene. Now that I was gone, now that I had amnesia and no longer loved him, he thought 2 short text messages were enough to fix everything? Enough to make me forgive him and accept whatever scraps he was willing to offer? That was even more insulting than being called just for fun during those 7 years. "Oh, right," I said suddenly, turning around. I grabbed the white invitation sample Liam had rolled into a tube earlier, carefully writing down the date, address, and my name on it before handing it to Ethan. Even I was surprised at my own composure, as if thinking about Ethan no longer hurt the way it used to. "This is just a sample. The design isn't final yet, but I hope you won't mind. You're cordially invited to the wedding, Mr. Hayes." I held the invitation out in front of him, but Ethan didn't take it. He just stared at me, his dark eyes full of an almost pitiful sense of abandonment. For a moment, he looked like a stray dog, lost and left behind. In the end, Ethan didn't accept the invitation. He simply gave me a deep, searching look before turning and walking away. I exhaled a long breath of relief, feeling as though a weight had lifted. Liam appeared at my side almost immediately, his face full of exaggerated annoyance. "Now I hate white invitations even more," he muttered. I laughed. "Fine. Let's go with red." Liam blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree so quickly. "Just like that? What else did you expect?" I tilted my head, looking at him teasingly. "Weren't you excited to watch Ethan grovel for me earlier? Why the sudden change of heart?" Liam bristled, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. He raised his chin in mock indignation. "That's different. I was just testing your attitude back then. Don't overthink it." I stretched out the word "oh," dragging it dramatically. Liam's face turned red, and I suddenly realized how unexpectedly endearing he could be. After that day, Ethan truly disappeared from my life. I buried myself in work, rushing to finish a project while juggling wedding preparations with Liam. Amid the chaos, I found that I barely thought about Ethan at all. The wedding date crept closer, and with only a week to go, I received a call from the bridal shop informing me that my dress was ready. Liam was still at the hotel finalizing details for the venue, so I decided to go on my own. The altered dress fit perfectly, standing in front of the mirror in the shop. The bright lights reflected off the white fabric, making me appear dazzling and radiant. But as I looked at myself, my eyes stung, and a flood of emotions swept over me. 7 years of fruitless waiting, the relief of that car crash, The pain of crying alone at night after waking up. The unexpected comfort of being cherished by Liam. And the memory of his reddened eyes when we picked out the dress together. Some answers I had been too afraid to confront now felt so clear. Suddenly, Ethan's face appeared in the mirror. Startled, I turned my head quickly and realized that the shop staff had quietly disappeared, leaving us alone. Ethan, what are you doing here? Our eyes met, and I was shocked by how worn he looked. He wasn't unkempt or disheveled, but his entire demeanor radiated exhaustion. Nina. Ethan stopped in front of me. His gaze locked on mine with an intensity that made my heart clench. His voice was deep and steady, as if he were resigning himself to something. I've tried, he said, his tone heavy with emotion. I've tried to move on, but I can't. I can't stand by and watch you leave me like this. I've spent these days trying to let go, filling my time with friends and work. But every time I stop, all I can think about is you. When I think about how you don't love me anymore, how you're about to marry someone else. His voice cracked slightly, but he pressed on. That I feel like I could kill Liam and take you back. His words were raw, drenched in sincerity, but I felt nothing but fatigue and helplessness. I couldn't respond to him. I didn't want to. Without saying a word, I turned to leave, but the weight of the wedding dress slowed me down, and before I could take a step, Ethan grabbed my arm and pulled me back. His desperation was palpable, as though he believed his words had an expiration date. You were right, he said, his voice trembling. I was wrong. So wrong. I enjoyed your love, but I arrogantly thought I saw through you and hurt you. When I realized this, I regretted it so much that it made my whole body numb. I know now that my mistakes were irredeemable, and that it's nearly impossible for us to work out. But call me despicable if you want. I also felt a glimmer of joy. Thank God that stormy night made you lose your memory. It gave me hope for a fresh start. Ethan's breaths were uneven as he spoke, and then he pulled a small red velvet ring box out of his pocket. With deliberate solemnity, he dropped to one knee. Nina, you once proposed to me, asking me to marry you. Back then, I made the wrong choice. I'm here now to admit my mistake. If I say I'm ready to marry you, will you come with me? Without hesitation, I shook my head. No, even if I remembered everything, my answer would still be no. Ethan's gaze faltered, but I continued, my voice steady. Ethan, you said it yourself. Our past isn't something worth cherishing, and at the same time, we have no future to build together. It's best for us to part ways as strangers. I meant every word. After I spoke, I looked at Ethan sincerely, but I saw something within his determined gaze begin to crack. What replaced it was an overwhelming panic that surged through his eyes. Do you love Liam? Then, his voice trembled. Even if you remember him, so what? You and he don't have a past to cherish either. If it's a marriage without history, why can't it be with me? It's different, I said without hesitation. Images of Liam's animated expressions and dramatic gestures flashed in my mind, and I couldn't help but smile. The past doesn't matter. My future will be with Liam, and I'm happy to make that choice. Happy to make that choice. Ethan echoed bitterly. He suddenly let out a cold laugh, and a chilling shadow passed through his eyes. So, that's how it is. A willing heart. Nina, those who have known despair won't let go of even a shred of hope. With those words, Ethan turned and left. But his retreat didn't bring me any relief. Unease settled heavily in my chest, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something ominous was brewing. The day before the wedding, I was on the phone with Liam, and the worry lingered in my voice. Don't stress about it, Liam said gently, his tone steady and reassuring. Whatever Ethan tries to do, it doesn't matter. My family isn't one to be trifled with, but this does remind me. Let me know where you are from now on. No more wandering off on your own. His words washed away some of my anxiety, and I laughed softly. I thought this was supposed to be a business arrangement. When did you start acting like my keeper? Contract marriage or not, I'll be your legal husband tomorrow, he replied, his voice tinged with unmistakable delight. But I hesitated, my expression dimming. Liam, do you really not mind my past? The 7 years I spent with him? There was a pause on the other end of the line before Liam's playful tone grew serious. Nina, The reflection of the moon in dirty water doesn't sully the moon's purity. Your worth comes from within you, not from others. The sincerity in his words pierced through my self-doubt, and then he lightened the mood with a teasing laugh. Anyway, I don't care. You, my queen, are the most beautiful monkey on Mount Huagua. Tomorrow, you better be radiant at the wedding. Is it too late to back out now? I joked, unable to hide my amusement. But my concerns weren't unfounded. On the morning of the wedding, a minor complication arose. The custom wedding rings were delayed by a day and only arrived that morning. Liam had to take a detour to pick them up, and with the morning traffic, it turned into a bigger delay. As I sat in the hotel dressing room, swinging my feet nervously, I tried to stay calm and reassure Liam over the phone. Don't worry, we've got plenty of time. Even if you have to crawl here, you'll make it. Don't wander off. Okay? He warned for the third time before hanging up. The wedding dress was heavy, and even with the air conditioning, I felt stifled. Deciding to step into the hallway for some air, I wandered toward the entrance, wanting to keep an eye out for Liam's arrival. The red-carpeted corridor reminded me too much of that night at the gala, and my mind replayed Ethan's strange behavior. A creeping unease settled over me, making me decide to turn back. But as I turned, I collided with a pair of familiar, bloodshot eyes. Startled, I gasped, but before I could react, a pungent, stinging cloth was pressed against my mouth. Ethan held me tightly, his arms like a vice, and no matter how much I struggled, my strength quickly ebbed away. My consciousness faded, the last thing I saw being Ethan's obsessive gaze. When I woke up, my hands were bound with wide strips of cloth, and I was lying on a soft, luxurious bed. The bindings didn't hurt, but they were unyielding. Ethan sat at the edge of the bed, watching me silently. When he saw I was awake, he smiled softly. You're awake. Suppressing the panic rising in my chest, I struggled to sit up. Ethan, are you insane? Maybe, he admitted, reaching out to gently smooth my disheveled hair. His focused expression sent a shiver down my spine. If I can't win you back through normal means, I'll just have to use unconventional ones. I tried to scoot away from him, but my retreat only seemed to provoke him further. In one swift motion, he grabbed me and pulled me into his arms. His grip on my shoulders was firm, his eyes wild and desperate as tears began to stream down his face. Nina, please don't hate me, he whispered, his voice trembling. I had no other choice, Ethan said, his voice cracking, each word dripping with despair. I know my mistakes are unforgivable, but fate gave me another chance. It erased the terrible memories of what I did, and I can't let go of that hope. The pain in his voice was palpable, threatening to shatter him entirely. Yet I only looked at him coldly, listening without a trace of emotion. My heart was calm, unshaken. I wasn't thinking about Ethan. I was worried about Liam. What if he got back to the hotel and couldn't find me? Ethan seemed to sense my indifference. He wiped his tear-streaked face, grabbed a bottle of water from the table, and opened it before handing it to me. Drink some water, he said softly. I won't hurt you, but don't even think about leaving. We're starting over. I'll wait as long as it takes for you to fall in love with me again. I glanced at the familiar green bottle. Torier, my favorite brand. I remembered once asking Ethan to buy it for me. He got the wrong brand, and when I complained, he'd brushed it off, saying, "Isn't all water the same?" Now, apparently, Ethan could get the right one when he wanted to. My mind was made up. Slowly, I raised my head and looked him in the eyes. I never forgot. Not once. Ethan froze, his brows furrowing. What are you saying? I said. I repeated, my voice steady. I never forgot. Not you. Not what you said about me being just for fun. I pretended to lose my memory because 7 years of my love being wasted was too humiliating. I used amnesia as an escape. Ethan, your chance was gone the moment you said those words. You lost it when you treated my feelings as charity. Ethan's face drained of color. He staggered backward, staring at me with wide, bloodshot eyes. The veins on his forehead bulged, twisting his handsome features into something terrifying. I watched as he struggled to breathe, his chest heaving violently, his back hunched as though he was in physical pain. Then, With a bitter smile that was harder to bear than crying. He said, "You've won. Nina. You hate me that much. Huh. But what can I do? I can't bring myself to hurt you." His laughter was filled with despair as he took a step back. Then another. His eyes were filled with grief and hopelessness, like a prisoner surrendering before the executioner. "Nina, what am I supposed to do with you?" he whispered. "I'm begging you. Hate me. Punish me. Even use me. But don't leave me. Please." "No," I said, shaking my head despite knowing it would only make things worse. "Ethan, love isn't a game. You had 7 years. And you didn't cherish a single moment. Once it's gone, it's gone. I can't forget how you trampled my feelings and turned my love into a handout. Don't you understand?" "No," he said, letting out a laugh that was half hysteria. He wiped his tears away and began walking toward me, his movements deliberate and unrelenting. "I don't understand. All I know is that you're here now, and I can't let you go. You've avoided me for so long. Nina, you wouldn't even let me see you alone. If you won't forgive me, then fine. We'll stay broken. At least this way. You're still mine." Ethan's hand reached out, and he began tearing at my wedding dress. His tear-streaked face pressed kisses full of desperation against my neck. A wave of panic and revulsion surged through me. My hands were bound, limiting my ability to fight back. But I still pushed and struggled with all my strength. "Ethan, let me go. You're only going to ruin yourself and push us beyond the point of no return. Ethan, do you hear me?" But he didn't. He was deaf to my pleas, consumed by his madness as he ripped my dress further. Terror overwhelmed me, and my voice broke as I screamed, "Liam, where the hell are you?" Bang! The door flew open, crashing against the wall with a deafening sound. My half-choked scream caught in my throat as I turned to see Liam storming in, clad in a black suit that made him look even more striking than usual. Ethan didn't flinch. It was as if he'd been expecting this. He didn't even look back. His gaze still locked on me as he placed one last desperate kiss on my lips. "So fast," he muttered. "I thought I'd have more time." But Liam was already there, grabbing Ethan by the collar. He hauled him to his feet and landed a solid punch on his face. "You dare mess with my fiancé?" Liam roared, his fury like that of a lion ready to kill. His fists tightened, poised to strike again. I'd never seen him like this, and it terrified me. "Liam, stop," I shouted. "You'll kill him." My voice seemed to snap him out of it. Breathing heavily, Liam paused and looked at me. Relief flooded his features as he rushed to my side, pulling me into his arms. I could feel his body trembling violently. "You scared me to death. Nina," he murmured, his voice cracking. "I scared you," I said, exasperated. "I'm the one who was tied up." He ignored me, clutching me tighter. "On the way here, I even thought about where I'd bury myself if I didn't make it in time. Thank God I put a tracker on your phone. Or else things really would have been a disaster," I muttered, poking his side with my bound fingers. "Can you stop wailing now and untie me?" Liam loosened his hold and glanced at Ethan, who was lying on the floor, his gaze hollow. His tone was cold as ice. "Don't worry. I'll deal with him. I could have gone straight to the police, right?" "Well, I already called them," Liam said, his voice calm but laced with an edge. "They'll be here soon. Let's get you downstairs first. Carry me, then," I said, sniffing as I looked up at him. "My legs are numb." Liam's composure shattered instantly. Cursing under his breath, he scooped me up into his arms. Fine. Just keep enslaving me. Why don't you? Clearly, I owe you." As he carried me, the tingling in my legs from being bound started to subside, nestled against his chest. I couldn't help but laugh. "Liam, you're so good to me. Are you sure you don't secretly like me?" Yes. I like you so much it's killing me." He shot back sarcastically. "I just love serving you. You're still not married to me yet. You've got time to change your mind. You know. Wouldn't that just make things messy, eh?" "I'd rather not." His arms were strong and steady, and I could hear the rhythmic thudding of his heartbeat against his chest. My long-suppressed emotions surged, and before I could stop myself, I blurted out the question that had been weighing on my mind. "Be honest. Did you really just want someone, anyone, To partner with for this marriage? Or did you use it as an excuse because you wanted to marry me? Liam stopped in his tracks, glaring down at me with mock anger. What do you think? I waited 7 years for you to break up with him. You owe me 70 years to make up for it. I couldn't help but smile, warmth spreading through my chest. Turning my head, I glanced back one last time at Ethan, who was now sitting against the wall, resigned and unresisting. He looked at me too, giving me a faint, bittersweet smile. Goodbye, Ethan, I said softly. Goodbye, Nina, he replied, his voice heavy with finality.